Tom arrived at the corner brew 15 minutes early, his heart beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. The cafe was exactly as he had imagined, warm lighting, comfortable chairs, and the rich smell of coffee beans filling the air. He found a small table near the window and sat down, checking his phone every few seconds even though he knew it was too early for Jennifer to arrive. The waitress, a friendly woman in her 30s, approached his table with a warm smile. "Good evening. Can I start you off with something to drink?" Tom's throat felt dry. "I'm actually waiting for someone. Could I wait a few minutes?" "Of course, honey. Take your time," she said kindly, and Tom felt grateful that she didn't pressure him to order right away. He looked around the cafe and noticed it was busier than he had expected for a Thursday evening. There were couples sharing desserts, friends laughing over steaming mugs, and business people typing on laptops. Everyone seemed so comfortable and confident. Tom tugged at his shirt sleeve, suddenly feeling very out of place. At exactly 7 o'clock, a woman walked through the front door. She was tall and elegant, wearing a black business suit and carrying an expensive-looking purse. Her hair was perfectly styled, and she wore just enough makeup to look polished and professional. This had to be Jennifer. Tom stood up nervously and waved. "Jennifer?" She looked him up and down for a moment, and Tom caught a flicker of something. Disappointment? Cross her face before she smiled and walked over. "You must be Tom, Lisa's friend from work." "Yes, that's me," Tom said, pulling out her chair like his mother had taught him years ago. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." Jennifer sat down and immediately pulled out her phone, checking it quickly before placing it on the table. "So Lisa tells me you work with her. What exactly do you do?" Tom felt his cheeks warm up. "I work for a family. I help maintain their house, do repairs, that kind of thing." "Oh," Jennifer said, her smile becoming a little less genuine. "Like a handyman?" "Something like that," Tom replied, not wanting to use the word servant just yet. "It's honest work and I enjoy helping people." The waitress returned to their table. "Have you folks decided what you'd like to order?" Jennifer immediately perked up. "I'll have a large cappuccino with an extra shot, and could I see your dessert menu?" "I heard you have amazing cheesecake here." The waitress turned to Tom expectantly. He quickly calculated in his head. A large cappuccino would probably cost around $4, and cheesecake would be at least $6 or $7 more. That was already more than double what he had in his wallet. "I'll just have a small regular coffee, please," Tom said quietly. Jennifer looked at him with surprise. "Just coffee? Aren't you hungry? Lisa said you were taking me out for coffee and dessert." Tom felt his stomach drop. Lisa had mentioned dessert? He hadn't budgeted for that. "Well, the coffee here smells so good, I thought we could start with that and see how it goes." "See how it goes?" Jennifer repeated, her voice getting a little louder. "What does that mean exactly?" The waitress sensed the tension and quickly said, "I'll give you folks a few more minutes to decide," before hurrying away to another table. Tom took a deep breath. He had promised himself he would be honest. "Jennifer, I need to be upfront with you. I don't have a lot of money right now. I was hoping we could just share some coffee and get to know each other." Jennifer stared at him for a long moment. "Share coffee? Are you serious right now?" "I know it's not ideal," Tom said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But I thought maybe we could just talk, you know? Learn about each other?" Jennifer laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Lisa told me you were a nice guy with potential. She didn't mention you were broke." Tom felt like he had been slapped. "I'm not broke, I don't have extra money for expensive dates right now. I send most of my paycheck home to help my parents." "Your parents?" Jennifer's voice was getting louder, and Tom noticed other people in the cafe starting to glance over at their table. "How old are you?" 22, Tom answered, confused about why that mattered. 22 years old and you can't even afford to buy a girl dessert?" Jennifer shook her head in disbelief. "What kind of future could you possibly offer anyone?" Tom felt his face burning with embarrassment. "I have plans. I'm saving money to start my own business someday. I want to open a repair shop and—" "Someday?" Jennifer interrupted. "Someday? Do you know what I do for a living, Tom? I'm a marketing manager for a tech company. I make 6 figures a year. I drive a BMW. I own my own condo downtown." She gestured around the cafe dramatically. "This place? This is where I grab coffee on my lunch break." This isn't a date spot for me. This is barely a pit stop. Tom felt smaller and smaller with every word she spoke. Around them, other customers were now openly staring. He could see a businessman at the next table shaking his head with disapproval, though Tom wasn't sure if it was directed at him or at Jennifer. "I'm sorry," Tom said quietly. "I didn't realize you were expecting something more expensive. Maybe we should just—" "You know what the really sad part is?" Jennifer continued, not seeming to hear his attempt to end the conversation peacefully. "Lisa actually made you sound interesting. She said you were kind and hardworking and genuine. But genuine doesn't pay rent, Tom. Genuine doesn't buy groceries or put gas in a car." Tom tried one more time to salvage the situation. "You're right about the money, but I really am hardworking. I work 6 days a week and I'm reliable and—" "A servant," Jennifer said flatly. "You're a servant, aren't you?" "That's what you meant by helping a family maintain their house." "You're the help." The word hung in the air like a poison cloud. Tom felt his chest tighten. "I prefer to think of it as being part of a household staff." Jennifer laughed again, and this time it was loud enough that the entire cafe could hear. "Oh my God, Lisa set me up with the help. This is unbelievable." She stood up abruptly, grabbing her purse. "Look at you," she said, pointing at Tom's carefully chosen outfit. "Look at those shoes. Look at that shirt. Is that the best you own? Did you actually think this was going to work?" Tom looked down at his clothes, the shirt he had ironed twice that morning, the jeans he had washed and dried with extra care, the shoes he had polished until they shone. They were humble, but they were clean and the best he had. "I thought maybe if we talked, you might see that I'm a good person," Tom said, his voice barely above a whisper. "A good person who can't afford a $20 date," Jennifer shot back. "Do you know what my last boyfriend did for our first date? He took me to a rooftop restaurant that cost more than you probably make in a month." The cafe had gone almost completely quiet now. Even the barista behind the counter had stopped making drinks to listen. Tom felt like he was on display at a zoo, with everyone staring at the poor boy who had dared to ask a successful woman out for coffee. "I can see this was a mistake," Tom said, starting to stand up. "I should probably just go." "Yes, you should," Jennifer agreed. "And do yourself a favor. Next time you want to ask someone out, make sure you can actually afford it. There are dating apps for people in your situation. Don't waste the time of professional women." Tom reached into his wallet and pulled out his $5, placing it on the table. "For the coffee I was going to order," he said quietly. Jennifer looked at the crumpled bills with disgust. $5? You came here with $5? That's not even enough for my coffee order." What Tom didn't know was that across the cafe, sitting in a corner booth that was partially hidden by a large plant, someone had been watching the entire scene unfold. Mr. Richardson had come to the corner brew for a late business meeting with a potential investor, but his meeting had been canceled at the last minute. He had decided to stay and answer some emails over coffee. When he had first spotted Tom entering the cafe, Mr. Richardson had been surprised but pleased. In 3 years of employment, he had never seen his young employee dressed up or out anywhere social. He had been curious about what the occasion might be. But as he watched the conversation between Tom and Jennifer escalate, Mr. Richardson's surprise had turned to anger. He watched as his hard-working, honest employee, a young man who had never asked for a raise, never called in sick, never complained about any task, was being humiliated by this woman who clearly valued money over character. Mr. Richardson's hands clenched into fists under the table as he watched Tom place his $5 on the table with dignity, even after being treated so cruelly. He had seen enough. As Jennifer gathered her things and prepared to make her dramatic exit, Mr. Richardson was already reaching for his phone, his mind racing with an idea that would change everything. Just as Jennifer was about to storm out of the cafe, leaving Tom sitting alone with his $5 on the table and the eyes of every customer burning into him, something unexpected happened. A well-dressed man in an expensive navy suit approached their table with confident steps. Tom looked up, confused and embarrassed, wondering if this stranger was going to add to his humiliation. The man looked to be in his 40s, with graying hair at his temples and kind but sharp eyes. He carried himself like someone important, someone who was used to being listened to. "Excuse me," the man said politely, his voice carrying just enough authority to make Jennifer pause in her dramatic exit. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, and I hope you don't mind the interruption." Jennifer turned around, clearly annoyed. "I'm sorry, but this is a private conversation." "Actually, I think you'll want to hear what I have to say," the man replied with a calm smile. He pulled out a business card from his jacket pocket. "My name is Robert Martinez, and I'm a talent scout for Richardson Enterprises." Tom's eyes widened. Richardson Enterprises? That was Mr. Richardson's company, one of the biggest tech companies in the city. But Tom had never seen this man before, and he thought he knew most of Mr. Richardson's close associates. Robert continued, "I've been sitting over there for the past 20 minutes, and I have to say, young man, I've been very impressed by what I've observed." "Impressed?" Jennifer laughed harshly. "By what? His inability to afford coffee?" Robert turned to look at Jennifer with a cool expression. "No, miss. I was impressed by his honesty, his dignity under pressure, and his grace in the face of, let's call it, challenging behavior." The entire cafe was now completely silent. Even the barista had stopped cleaning glasses to listen. Tom felt like he was in some kind of strange dream. "I don't understand," Tom said quietly. "You've been watching me." "In my line of work," Robert explained, "I'm always looking for people with the right character. Technical skills can be taught, but integrity, dignity, the ability to stay calm under pressure, those are qualities you're either born with or you're not." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "Tom, isn't it? I heard your name during the conversation. I'm prepared to offer you a position with Richardson Enterprises starting immediately." Jennifer's mouth fell open. "You're joking." "I never joke about business," Robert replied seriously. He opened the folder and pulled out what looked like an official contract. "The position is operations coordinator for our new community outreach division. The starting salary is $150,000 per year, plus full benefits, health insurance, and a company car." Tom felt like the world had stopped spinning. $150,000? That was more money than he had ever imagined making. That was more than his father had made in his best year at the factory. I don't understand," Tom stammered. "You don't even know anything about my qualifications." Robert smiled warmly. "Son, I've been in business for 25 years. I've learned that you can tell more about a person's character in 10 minutes of watching how they treat others than you can from any resume. You just showed me exactly the kind of person our company needs." He pointed to the $5 still sitting on the table. "You came here with limited resources, but you were honest about it. When faced with ridicule, you didn't get angry or defensive. You treated that young lady with respect even when she showed you none. And when you decided to leave, you still tried to pay for what you had ordered, even though you hadn't received anything." Jennifer was staring at the contract in Robert's hands, like it might disappear if she blinked. "This has to be some kind of mistake," she said. "Companies don't just offer jobs to random people in coffee shops." "You're right," Robert agreed. "They don't. But I've been authorized by the board of directors to recruit exceptional individuals wherever I find them. And Tom here has just demonstrated exactly the kind of character we value." Tom's hands were shaking as Robert placed the contract in front of him. The letterhead looked official, with the Richardson Enterprises logo at the top. The salary number seemed to jump off the page, $150,000. "I need to ask," Tom said, his voice barely steady. "Is this real? This isn't some kind of joke or mistake." "I understand your confusion," Robert said kindly. "It's not every day something like this happens. But I assure you, this offer is completely legitimate. Richardson Enterprises has been looking for someone to head up our new community outreach program. We need someone who understands what it's like to work hard for everything they have, someone who treats all people with respect regardless of their status." He pulled out a pen and set it next to the contract. "The position comes with a signing bonus of $25,000, which would be deposited into your account within 48 hours of signing." Jennifer suddenly sat back down at the table, her attitude completely transformed. "Tom, honey, I think there might have been a misunderstanding earlier. I was testing you, to see how you handle pressure in difficult situations. Tom looked at her with surprise. Testing me? Yes, Jennifer said, her voice now sweet and apologetic. I work in marketing, remember? I understand the importance of character assessment. I could tell right away that you were special, and I wanted to see how you'd react under stress. Robert raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Tom felt confused and overwhelmed. The woman who had just humiliated him in front of an entire cafe was now acting like they were old friends. Jennifer, Tom said slowly, 5 minutes ago you were telling me I wasn't good enough to buy you coffee. Oh, that, Jennifer waved her hand dismissively. That was all part of the test. I could see this gentleman watching us, and I suspected he might be someone important. I was actually helping you showcase your best qualities. Tom looked from Jennifer to Robert, trying to process everything that was happening. This is all very confusing. I imagine it is, Robert said sympathetically. Life has a way of changing very quickly sometimes. The question is, are you ready for a change? Tom picked up the contract with trembling hands. The terms looked incredible. Not just the salary, but health insurance for him and his family, 3 weeks of paid vacation, and opportunities for advancement. It was everything he had ever dreamed of and more. Can I ask what this community outreach program involves? Tom asked. Certainly, Robert replied. Richardson Enterprises has decided to invest in programs that help working families in the community. We need someone to oversee food banks, job training programs, housing assistance, basically someone who understands the challenges that everyday people face. Tom's eyes filled with tears. This wasn't just a job. It was a chance to help other people who were struggling like his family had struggled. The position also comes with a discretionary budget, Robert continued. You'd be able to make direct assistance grants to families in need. We're talking about real power to change people's lives. Jennifer leaned closer to Tom. This is amazing, Tom. We should celebrate. Maybe we could go to that rooftop restaurant I mentioned earlier. Tom looked at her carefully. Jennifer, I appreciate the offer, but I think we want different things in life. What do you mean? She asked, her smile faltering slightly. I mean that an hour ago, you made it very clear that you thought I wasn't worth your time because I didn't have money. Now that something has changed, you're suddenly interested again. That tells me that you're more interested in what I might have than who I am. The cafe erupted in quiet murmurs of approval. Several people at nearby tables nodded their heads, clearly impressed by Tom's response. Robert smiled broadly. Tom, that response just confirmed that we're making the right choice. Tom took a deep breath and picked up the pen. Mr. Martinez, I'd like to accept your offer. As Tom signed his name on the contract, he felt like he was signing away his old life and stepping into something completely new and unknown. The $5 still sat on the table. The same $5 that had seemed so important an hour ago now felt like a symbol of a life he was leaving behind. What Tom didn't know was that across the cafe, hidden behind a large plant, Mr. Richardson was watching everything unfold with a satisfied smile. His assistant Robert was playing his part perfectly, and Tom was handling his sudden good fortune with exactly the kind of grace and wisdom that Mr. Richardson had hoped to see. But the real test was still to come. Could Tom handle success as well as he had handled poverty? Only time would tell. Word spread through the corner brew like wildfire. Within minutes of Tom signing the contract, every person in the cafe was whispering about what they had just witnessed. The barista behind the counter kept stealing glances at their table. A group of college students in the corner booth had their phones out, probably texting their friends about the incredible scene they had just watched unfold. Tom sat there holding the signed contract, still trying to process what had just happened to his life. The paper felt heavy in his hands, like it contained the weight of his entire future, $150,000 a year. He did the math quickly in his head. That was more than $12,000 a month. More money than his family had ever dreamed of having. Tom, Jennifer said, sliding her chair closer to his, I can't believe this just happened. It's like something out of a movie. Her voice was completely different now, warm, sweet, almost singing with excitement. She reached over and touched his arm gently. You know, I feel terrible about earlier. I think I was just nervous about meeting someone new. First date jitters, you know. Tom looked at her carefully. This was the same woman who had called him pathetic 15 minutes ago. The same woman who had laughed at his $5 and told him he wasn't worth her time. Now she was looking at him like he was the most interesting person in the world. First date jitters? Tom repeated slowly. Yes, exactly, Jennifer said, her smile bright and convincing. Sometimes when I'm nervous, I say things I don't really mean. It's like a defense mechanism, you know? I put up walls to protect myself. Robert, who had been quietly organizing his papers, looked up with an amused expression. That's an interesting way to put it, he said dryly. Jennifer ignored him and focused all her attention on Tom. The truth is, from the moment I walked in here, I could tell you were different, special. There's something about you that just shines, you know? An elderly woman at the next table made a soft humph sound and shook her head disapprovingly. Tom noticed several other customers exchanging knowing looks. It was clear that everyone in the cafe could see exactly what Jennifer was doing. Jennifer, Tom said gently, I appreciate what you're saying, but I have to be honest. When you thought I only had $5, you made it very clear how you felt about me. You called me pathetic. You said I was wasting your time. Jennifer's cheeks turned slightly pink. Tom, honey, you have to understand, I meet a lot of men who aren't serious about their futures. Men who are content to just drift through life without any ambition. I was trying to figure out if you were one of those guys. By humiliating me in public? Tom asked. By challenging you, Jennifer corrected quickly. And look how it turned out. If I hadn't pushed you, if I hadn't created that pressure situation, Mr. Martinez here might never have seen your true character shine through. Robert raised an eyebrow but continued to stay quiet, seemingly enjoying watching Jennifer try to rewrite history. Tom felt a headache coming on. So you're saying that calling me a servant and laughing at my clothes was actually you helping me? Exactly, Jennifer said, as if Tom had just solved a difficult puzzle. It was like I was your acting coach, helping you deliver the performance of a lifetime. The barista finally couldn't contain herself anymore. She walked over to their table with a fresh pot of coffee. Excuse me, she said to Jennifer, but I was standing right here when you told this young man that he should use dating apps for people in his situation. That didn't sound like coaching to me. Jennifer's face turned redder. Well, you have to understand the context. The context, said the elderly woman from the next table, turning around in her chair, was that you were being cruel to a nice young man because he didn't have enough money for your liking. We all heard it, dear. More customers began to nod in agreement. The college students in the corner were openly staring now, clearly fascinated by the drama unfolding before them. Tom felt embarrassed by all the attention, but also strangely touched that these strangers were defending him. It's okay, everyone, he said. I appreciate your support, but I can handle this. He turned back to Jennifer. I understand that people sometimes say things they don't mean when they're nervous or stressed. But the way you spoke to me earlier, it showed me something important about how you see the world. What do you mean? Jennifer asked, though her smile was starting to look strained. You measured my worth entirely by how much money I had in my wallet, Tom explained. And now that you think I have more money, suddenly I'm a different person to you. But I'm the same person I was an hour ago. The only thing that's changed is this opportunity. He held up the contract. This is wonderful and I'm grateful for it. But it doesn't change who I am inside. I'm still the same guy who sends money home to his parents. I'm still the same guy who was saving up to open a repair shop. I still have the same values and the same heart. Jennifer reached for his hand. Of course you do. And that's what I love about you. Love? Tom pulled his hand back gently. Jennifer, 2 hours ago you didn't even know my last name. Robert cleared his throat. If I may interrupt, he said, I have some paperwork for Tom to fill out, and then I'd like to take him to the office to meet some of the team. Oh, that's perfect, Jennifer exclaimed. Tom, after you're done with your business meeting, we could grab dinner. I know this amazing place downtown. It's got a fantastic wine list and... Jennifer, Tom said firmly but kindly, I think you're a beautiful woman, and I'm sure you're successful and smart. But I don't think we're looking for the same things in life. What do you mean? We both want success, don't we? We both want nice things? Tom shook his head. Earlier tonight, you asked me what kind of future I could offer anyone? At the time, I was embarrassed because I thought you meant money, but now I realize you were asking the wrong question. I don't understand. The question isn't what kind of future I can offer someone, Tom explained. The question is what kind of future we can build together. And that depends on shared values, mutual respect, and caring about each other for who we are, not what we have. The cafe had gone quiet again, but this time it felt different. Instead of watching a spectacle, people seemed to be genuinely moved by what Tom was saying. You treated me like I was worthless when you thought I was poor, Tom continued. That tells me that if I ever lost this job, if I ever fell on hard times again, you'd treat me the same way. I can't build a relationship with someone who only values me when I'm successful. Jennifer's carefully composed expression began to crack. Tom, please, give me another chance. I can change. I believe people can change, Tom said gently. But change has to come from inside, because you want to be a better person. Not because someone's circumstances changed. He stood up and extended his hand to her in a gesture of respect. I hope you find someone who makes you happy, Jennifer. I really do, but I don't think that person is me. Jennifer stared at his outstretched hand for a moment, then reluctantly shook it. I hope you'll reconsider. I won't, Tom said with quiet certainty. But I wish you all the best. As Jennifer gathered her purse and prepared to leave, the entire cafe seemed to hold its breath. She paused at the door and looked back at Tom one more time. You're making a mistake, she said. I could have given you connections, introduced you to important people. I could have helped your career, Tom smiled sadly. Jennifer, my career just changed completely in the span of 20 minutes. But it didn't happen because of connections or networking. It happened because someone saw my character when I thought nobody was watching. After Jennifer left, the cafe erupted in quiet applause. Robert smiled and began packing up his briefcase. Tom, he said, you just passed another test you didn't even know you were taking. What do you mean? How someone handles sudden good fortune tells you just as much about their character as how they handle adversity, Robert explained. You could have used this opportunity to get revenge on that woman. You could have been cruel to her the way she was cruel to you. Instead, you were honest and kind. Tom felt a warm feeling in his chest. For the first time all evening, he felt truly good about himself. What Tom still didn't know was that across the cafe, Mr. Richardson had watched the entire scene with growing admiration. His young employee had just shown more wisdom and integrity than many people twice his age. Now came the hard part. Mr. Richardson had to figure out how to make this elaborate charade into reality without revealing his role in orchestrating it. The real adventure was just beginning. The next 3 days passed like a whirlwind for Tom. On Friday morning, he woke up in his small boarding house room, staring at the contract on his nightstand and wondering if the whole thing had been an incredible dream. But there it was, real as anything, with his signature at the bottom and Robert Martinez's business card paper-clipped to the corner. Tom had called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years, telling the Richardson family's head of staff that he had a family emergency. It wasn't entirely a lie. His whole family's life was about to change, and he needed time to process what was happening before he could face his normal routine. His phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Hello, Tom? This is Robert Martinez. I hope I'm not calling too early. Tom's heart jumped. No, not at all. I've been awake since 5, Robert chuckled. Couldn't sleep either, huh? That's normal. Life-changing events tend to keep people up at night. Are you ready for your first day? My first day? Tom sat up in bed. I thought we were going to do paperwork first, or orientation, or change of plans, Robert said smoothly. We've decided to fast-track everything. Mr. Richardson himself wants to meet you this afternoon. Can you be at the Richardson Enterprises building at 2 o'clock? Tom's mouth went dry. Mr. Richardson wanted to meet him? His actual employer, the man whose house he cleaned and whose garden he tended, wanted to meet him as a potential employee. The irony was so overwhelming that Tom almost laughed out loud. Yes, sir. I'll be there. Excellent. Wear something professional if you have it. This is going to be a big day for you, Tom. After hanging up, Tom stared at his tiny closet. Professional clothes? He owned exactly one tie, a plain blue one he wore to church, and one dress shirt that was a little too big for him. He spent the morning at a thrift store, using some of his precious savings to buy a decent jacket and a pair of dress pants that actually fit. At exactly 2 o'clock, Tom stood in the lobby of Richardson Enterprises, feeling more nervous than he had ever felt in his life. The building was massive, all glass and steel and marble, with people in expensive suits rushing back and forth with important-looking documents. Robert appeared from an elevator, looking just as professional and polished as he had at the cafe. "Tom, right on time. That's exactly the kind of reliability we value here." As they rode the elevator up to the top floor, Robert chatted casually about the company. "Mr. Richardson started this company 20 years ago with just a small loan and a big dream. Now we employ over 3,000 people and have offices in 12 cities." Tom nodded, trying to look impressed even though he already knew Mr. Richardson's success story from overhearing phone conversations while he dusted the man's office. The elevator doors opened to reveal the most luxurious office space Tom had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. And there, sitting behind a massive desk, was Mr. Richardson himself. For a moment, Tom's knees nearly buckled. His employer was sitting right there, looking exactly the same as he did every morning when Tom brought him his coffee. But Mr. Richardson's expression was completely neutral, showing no sign of recognition. "Mr. Richardson," Robert said formally, "I'd like you to meet Tom Wilson, the young man I told you about." Mr. Richardson stood up and extended his hand with a professional smile. "Tom, it's a pleasure to meet you. Robert has told me some very interesting things about your character." Tom shook his employer's hand, feeling like he was in some kind of alternate universe. "Thank you, sir. I'm honored to be here. Please sit down." Mr. Richardson gestured to a chair across from his desk. "I understand you've had quite an unusual introduction to our company." "Yes, sir. It's been unexpected." Mr. Richardson leaned back in his chair and studied Tom carefully. "Tell me, Tom, what do you think about sudden opportunities? Do you believe in luck, or do you think people create their own chances?" Tom thought carefully before answering. "I think luck might get you noticed, sir, but what you do after that depends on who you are inside. Character is what really matters in the long run." "Interesting perspective," Mr. Richardson said, exchanging a meaningful look with Robert. "And how do you handle success? Some people let it change them." "I hope I never change who I am because of what I have," Tom replied honestly. "My parents taught me that money is a tool, not a measure of worth. If I'm fortunate enough to have more of it, I want to use it to help other people who are struggling the way my family struggled." Mr. Richardson was quiet for a long moment. Then he surprised Tom by asking, "What's the most important lesson you've learned from working hard for everything you have?" Tom felt a chill run down his spine. Something about that question felt very personal, very specific. "I've learned that honest work has dignity, no matter what kind of work it is. Whether someone is cleaning houses or running companies, if they're doing their job with integrity and treating people with respect, then their work has value." "Even cleaning houses?" Mr. Richardson asked with a slight smile. "Especially cleaning houses," Tom said firmly. "Someone who takes pride in making a home comfortable and clean for a family is doing something important. There's no shame in any honest work." Mr. Richardson stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "Tom, I have a confession to make." Tom's heart started beating faster. "Sir, Robert didn't find you by accident at that cafe." Tom felt the room start to spin slightly. "What do you mean?" Mr. Richardson turned around, his expression now warm and fatherly. "I was there that night. I saw everything that happened. I saw how that woman treated you, and I saw how you responded with dignity and grace." The truth hit Tom like a wave. You were watching. "I was supposed to have a business meeting that got canceled at the last minute," Mr. Richardson explained. "I decided to stay and answer emails. When I saw you walk in, I was curious about what you were doing there, dressed up and looking nervous." Tom's voice came out as barely a whisper. "You know who I am?" "Tom, you've been working for me for 3 years," Mr. Richardson said gently. "You think I don't notice the man who takes care of my home with such dedication? Who never complains, never asks for favors, and treats everyone in my household with kindness." Tom felt tears starting to form in his eyes. "I don't understand. Why didn't you just help me directly?" Mr. Richardson sat back down and leaned forward. "Because I wanted to see how you would handle sudden good fortune. I wanted to know if success would change your character. And most importantly, I wanted you to earn this opportunity, not just receive it as charity." "Earn it? The job offer is real, Tom," Robert interjected. "We really do need someone to run our community outreach program. But after watching you these past few days, we know you're the right person for it." Mr. Richardson nodded. "I've been looking for someone who understands what it's like to struggle, someone who won't forget where they came from when they achieve success." "You've proven that you're that person." Tom wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I can't believe this is really happening." "It gets better," Mr. Richardson said with a grin. "I've been watching your work for 3 years, Tom. You're intelligent, reliable, and you have natural leadership qualities. This community outreach position is just the beginning." Over the next hour, Mr. Richardson explained his vision for the program. Tom would oversee food banks, job training centers, and housing assistance programs. But more than that, he would have the authority to create new programs based on what he saw in the community. "I want you to help other people the way I'm helping you," Mr. Richardson said. "Find the hard-working people who just need a chance, and give them that chance." 6 months later, Tom's life was completely transformed. He had moved out of the boarding house and into a comfortable apartment. He was sending more money home to his parents than they had ever dreamed of having. And most importantly, he was making a real difference in people's lives. The community outreach program had already helped over 200 families find stable housing and good jobs. Tom had convinced several local businesses to partner with them, creating a network of support that was growing every week. But the best part of his new life wasn't the money or the success. It was the relationships he had built. Mr. Richardson had become more than an employer. He had become a mentor and friend. They met every week to discuss the program and plan new initiatives. One evening, as they were reviewing applications for the job training program, Mr. Richardson looked up from his papers. "Tom, do you ever think about that night at the cafe?" Tom smiled. "Every day. It changed everything." "Do you ever regret turning down that woman's offer for a second chance?" Tom shook his head firmly. "Not for a second. About a month ago, she actually called me. She had gotten my number somehow and wanted to meet for dinner." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I was seeing someone else." Mr. Richardson raised an eyebrow. "Oh, anyone I know?" Tom's smile got bigger. "Actually, yes. Remember Kelly, the woman who runs the food bank downtown? We've been dating for 3 months now. She's amazing, kind, hardworking, and she cares more about helping people than impressing them." "That sounds perfect for you." "It is," Tom agreed. "She knew me when I was still working as your house servant, and she liked me just the same then as she does now. That's how I know it's real." As Tom drove home that night, he thought about how one terrible date had led to the best thing that ever happened to him. He had learned that character truly was more important than money, that kindness was more valuable than status, and that sometimes the worst moments in life could lead to the most wonderful opportunities. The $5 he had brought to that cafe was still in his wallet, tucked behind his new credit cards. He kept it as a reminder of where he had come from and the values that had brought him to where he was now. Some things, he had learned, were worth more than any amount of money. The old grandfather clock in the corner of the mansion struck 6 in the morning as Tom quietly made his way down the marble staircase. His worn sneakers barely made a sound against the polished floor. After 3 years of working in this house, he had learned to move like a shadow, careful not to disturb the wealthy family that employed him. Tom had been just 19 when he first knocked on the door of the Richardson estate, desperate for any kind of work. His father had lost his job at the factory, and his mother was struggling to pay for her medical treatments. The family needed money, and Tom was willing to do whatever it took to help them survive. Mr. Richardson, the owner of several tech companies, had looked at the young man standing nervously on his doorstep. Tom's clothes were clean but clearly second-hand, and his shoes had seen better days. But there was something in the boy's eyes, a determination and honesty that reminded Mr. Richardson of his own younger self. "Can you work hard?" Mr. Richardson had asked simply. "Yes, sir. I can work harder than anyone," Tom had replied without hesitation. That was 3 years ago. Since then, Tom had proven himself to be the most reliable employee the Richardson family had ever had. He cleaned the house from top to bottom, maintained the gardens, ran errands, and even helped with small repairs around the property. He never complained, never asked for time off, and always had a smile ready for anyone who needed it. But working as a house servant wasn't easy. The pay was modest, just enough to send money home to his parents and keep a small room in a boarding house across town. Tom counted every penny, saving whatever he could in an old coffee tin hidden under his bed. His dream was simple. One day, he wanted to open a small repair shop where he could fix things for people in his neighborhood. His co-workers at the house often teased him about his single status. Lisa, who worked in the kitchen, was always trying to set him up with someone. "Tom, you're 22 years old," she would say while kneading dough for the family's dinner. "You should be out there meeting people, having fun, falling in love." But Tom always shook his head with embarrassment. How could he ask someone out when he barely had enough money for his own meals? What girl would want to date a guy who wore the same 3 shirts in rotation and had to think twice before buying a candy bar? "I'm not ready yet," he would tell Lisa. "Maybe when I have more money saved up." "Money isn't everything," Lisa would argue back. "There are good people out there who care more about your heart than your wallet." Tom wanted to believe her, but he had seen how the world worked. He had watched wealthy people come and go from the Richardson house, and he noticed how differently they treated him compared to how they treated each other. To them, he was invisible, just part of the furniture. One Tuesday afternoon, while Tom was polishing the silverware in the dining room, Lisa came rushing in with excitement written all over her face. She was practically bouncing on her toes as she approached him. "Tom, I have amazing news," she whispered, even though the family was out for the day. "My cousin works at an office downtown, and she has this friend who's looking to meet someone nice." Tom immediately started shaking his head. "Lisa, we've talked about this." "No, listen to me," Lisa interrupted, grabbing his arm. "Her name is Jennifer, and she's really sweet. She works in marketing for some company, and my cousin says she's tired of dating guys who only care about money and status. She wants to meet someone genuine." "I don't know," Tom said, continuing to polish a silver spoon until he could see his reflection in it. "What would we even do? I can't afford to take someone to a nice restaurant." "Just coffee," Lisa suggested. "Something simple." "You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not." Tom paused in his polishing. The truth was, he did feel lonely sometimes, living in that small boarding house room. Sending most of his money home and working 6 days a week didn't leave much room for a social life. He couldn't remember the last time he had sat down and just talked with someone his own age about something other than work. "Where would we meet?" he asked quietly. Lisa's face lit up. "There's this nice cafe downtown, the Corner Brew. It's not too fancy, but it's clean and friendly. Perfect for a first meeting." Tom thought about his finances. He had been saving for months to buy a small toolkit that would help him with his dream of opening a repair shop. But in his wallet right now, he had exactly $5 and some loose change. It was supposed to last him until his next payday, which was still 3 days away. "I don't know if I can afford it right now," he admitted, feeling his cheeks turn red with embarrassment. "Tom," Lisa said gently, "it's just coffee. And if she's the right person, she won't care if you can only afford 1 cup to share." That evening, Tom lay on his narrow bed in the boarding house, staring up at the ceiling with its water stain that looked like a map of some unknown country. Through the thin walls, he could hear his neighbor's television and the couple upstairs arguing about bills. This was his life, small, quiet, and predictable. Maybe Lisa was right. Maybe there was someone out there who would see past his worn clothes and empty wallet. Maybe there was a chance for something better. The next day, while he was watering the flowers in the Richardsons' garden, Tom made his decision. When Lisa came out to hang laundry on the line, he walked over to her. "Okay," he said simply. "I'll meet her." Lisa dropped the pillowcase she was holding and clapped her hands together. Really? Oh, Tom, this is wonderful. I'll call my cousin right now and set everything up. But just coffee, Tom added quickly. Nothing fancy? Just coffee, Lisa agreed with a huge smile. That night, Tom stood in front of the small mirror in his boarding house room, trying to decide what to wear. His options were limited. He owned 3 work shirts, one slightly nicer shirt that he wore to church, and a pair of jeans that were clean but had a small patch on one knee where he had torn them while working. He chose the church shirt and his best jeans, then spent 20 minutes trying to fix his hair with water since he didn't own any hair products. Looking at himself in the mirror, he felt nervous but hopeful. Maybe this was the beginning of something good. The date was set for Thursday evening at the Corner Brew. Tom had walked past the cafe many times while running errands for the Richardson family. It looked warm and inviting, with big windows and comfortable chairs. He had always wondered what it would be like to sit inside and just relax with a hot drink. As Thursday approached, Tom found himself both excited and terrified. He had never been on a real date before. What would they talk about? What if he said something stupid? What if she took one look at him and decided to leave? On Thursday morning, while Tom was organizing Mr. Richardson's study, he found himself moving more slowly than usual. His mind kept wandering to the evening ahead. He carefully dusted each book on the shelves, thinking about what he might say to Jennifer when they met. Mr. Richardson, who was working at his desk, noticed Tom's distracted state. "Everything all right, Tom? You seem a bit elsewhere today?" "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir," Tom replied quickly, focusing back on his work. "Just thinking about some personal matters." Mr. Richardson nodded and returned to his computer, but Tom noticed a small smile on his employer's face. In 3 years of working here, Tom had learned that Mr. Richardson was a fair man who genuinely cared about his employees, even if he didn't always show it openly. As the day went on, Tom's nervousness grew. By the time his work shift ended, his hands were actually shaking a little as he changed into his good clothes. He counted his money one more time, $5.37. Enough for 1 coffee, maybe 2 if they were small. The bus ride downtown cost him $1, leaving him with $4.37. As the city lights began to twinkle in the early evening darkness, Tom took a deep breath and prepared to meet Jennifer at the Corner Brew. He had no idea that this simple coffee date would change his life forever, or that someone very important would be watching every moment of what was about to unfold.